We're back at it, Jeremy. Look at us go after. It's like nothing. We didn't take a break at all. We're right back into it doing teardowns.
They're not supposed to know. Yes, obviously. Let's do a teardown together. There's a lot of things to learn from these two teardowns. One actually went viral on LinkedIn when I posted it. So, I think our listener deserves to listen to see it.
All right. Well, let's dive right in. I want that 10-minute timer though, because we
Oh,
do
forgot.
ramble and we want to get to the goods. As you find the timer, I'm going to go ahead and read out message one. I say message because this was a LinkedIn direct message. It says, "Hi Jack. Do you ever feel like your best ideas or solutions slip through the cracks between busy schedules and ad hoc brainstorming?
So
We
it's like
specialize
an
in."
AIDA
Right.
model straight away, like interruption pattern
Sure.
asking you.
Right. We special. I'll finish it out and then we'll go through. It's a
Mm,
short message. We specialize in helping teams embed continuous innovation into their daily operations with prop with a capital O. I did not know what that term was. Neither did Jeremy. So maybe I'm on the outside looking in. Interested in learning more. Name. Okay. So let's start right at the top here, beginning with a pain point, starting with a question, which is a little bit unorthodox. But I will say, Jeremy, from my point of view, the question hit something for me. They
oh,
did
interesting.
scratch, if anything, curiosity. I might say curiosity more than pain, but I'm like, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe I
it doesn't
have.
feel like a
Maybe,
bleeding neck problem, right?
yeah. I will say, you know me, Jeremy. I'm always thinking how we can use personalization to make this a little sharper. I would have said like, do you ever feel like your best ideas, like your CCQ method, right? And now, you know what I hate, Jeremy? We haven't talked about this yet, but um, if you're on ChatGPT and you're asking like, hey, what are some ideas for like personalization? It says like, oh, a lot of experts recommend the CCQ method, whatever. And I'm like, damn it, that's my. I go, who thought of the CCQ method? It goes like the sources vary, but this is a generally accepted thing. I'm like, you bastard. So, anyways,
Okay,
it's
well,
yeah.
for listeners and definitely for me, what's CCQ?
If you don't know, then then you just don't know.
Damn
I'm just
it.
kidding. The CCQ is complement, commonality, and question. It's just a good framework for thinking about how to personalize a
Ah,
message. Right. This
okay,
was
nice.
this was very important for those first liners that were in vogue. But here it
Great.
would have kind of given me a nod of like, all right, they spent 30 seconds and they kind of know a little bit about me. And it probably would have worked a little bit better. But Jeremy, I'm kind of picking up that there's nothing here for you.
Um, Curiosity is not quite there yet. I think it's to me, it's too verbose. Like it's like, your best idea slip through the crack between and then two things. Like, yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could probably like simplify this thing. Like, do you think like your best ideas are never executed at your company or like, are falling on the wayside because you're always busy? That would probably be nicer than like trying to make me think like, okay, is it busy? Is it, I
Cool.
don't know. Like it's, bear in mind that your prospect don't know you at all. Like they got no idea like who the hell is this person? It's like interrupting someone at the
Yeah.
supermarket. And so they're in a different frame of mind and then suddenly you ask them something, sure, you're going to have like an interruption pattern, but at least making sure that it, interrupting people doesn't mean that they're going to give you 20 seconds to think of your question, right? So you can interrupt
Yeah.
people, but just make sure your question is super easy to digest when you're switching context. That's what I'm saying. And I
Cool.
think it's a little bit too verbose for me.
So we shortened it a little bit. Do you ever feel like your best ideas, like your CCQ method, slip through the cracks? Uh, Maybe let's just end it there. Do you ever feel like your best ideas at SalesBread, right, at company,
Nice. I like that better.
slip through the cracks? Okay, question.
Yeah.
Now, okay, maybe, yeah. What do you got?
Okay. Yeah. Where
And
where do you want to go with that? That's
I
probably
think
like
they
my
need some
question.
help. I think they need some help in like what they tried to do was like problem solution call to action, right? So
Got
their
it.
solution, I think, is a little bit vague. Like, I don't know what prop is.
Yeah, that's not a good start, right? If you're trying to
So
sell
let's
something
talk
to
about
someone.
this. Let's talk about this. So I've seen some campaigns and written a couple that I'll intentionally like throw out a phrase that's like curiosity infusing, but I'll
Mm,
put quotes around it so that the other person knows like I don't expect you to know this phrase. When I say like operation redo or something, like I'll and the phrase
right.
has to like concrete. So it would be like, uh okay, so if we're making bear spray for vampires or something, like we'd say like vampire killing spray in like quotes, so like we don't assume that they know what the heck we're talking about. But this is
Got it.
so
What
let's
what would you
let's help
say
them out
about
though.
what would you say about jargon? Using jargon? Like to me, it seems like confusing people,
I
right?
love
So
jargon when you're in a room full of jargon speakers,
right,
right?
exactly. Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah,
Perry Marshall, grabbing
yeah.
that from you, sir. But in this case, it doesn't help us. So, like here, Jeremy, let's do some surgery.
Well,
Let's.
that's
I
like
mean, look. Let's.
amputation. It's not surgery if you remove the
Okay,
whole
fine.
lines.
Okay, fine. We know that solution sentence didn't help us out, but if we chop off the call to action and chop out the solution sentence and just have this and like maybe their profile talks all about their solution, like yes, that's super weird, but is this a step in the right direction or wrong direction?
It may not be enough for me to
Yeah.
reply right at this stage, but the solution is just, it's just, you have to also, tie it to your medium. People are expecting on LinkedIn that you're gonna like hit them with like, hey, we're specializing in helping X do Y. Do you not want it? So it's
I
like,
kind of
it
hate
may
that though. It's
work,
like
but yeah, I don't like that.
it's like I haven't written a sentence like this in years. Like we
Same.
specialize in because it's so me focused. And unless you're hitting a thing that's like so top of mind for this
Yeah.
prospect, they don't care what you specialize in.
Do you know
Right.
how I would actually approach this thing? I
Let me
would say
try.
like,
Yeah, hit me.
I would say personally, this is how I would write it. I would say like, "Hey Jack, I find it difficult to sleep or to to keep my best idea or whatever. Like, done something around those lines. I'm always like down to, in the past, I was using Trello or whatever. Like, I'm curious to know what you guys are using to make sure like no ideas fall through the cracks. That's more the approach that I will do to actually open the
Love that.
conversation into
Love
like, what do
that.
you guys are using to make sure that, nothing is falling through the cracks. As a
I love
LinkedIn
that.
touch, I think
Yeah.
that's probably the best I would do.
So it'd be like as a,
Yeah, and then
um,
use the likeness. So as a founder, a fellow founder, if that's a founder, as a fellow
perfect.
marketer, if it's a marketer, whatever it is.
Yeah. As a fellow agency owner,
Yeah, I always
I
find it
felt,
hard. Yeah, or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, like okay, let's write it so that we've got something to look at. Doesn't have to be beautiful.
Okay.
We're going to go into to message you shortly.
We may not need then. Like we're going
Yeah.
past the 10 minutes. Maybe we'll keep
I
it for
felt,
another podcast.
oh, there you go. Smart man. Okay. So as a fellow agency owner, I felt like, there you go. I've had a lot of good ideas, you know,
Slip through the
slip
cracks. I love
through.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the
The
past, I used
cracks.
Trello. I'm curious to know what you guys are
Nice.
using these days, or like if you find a better solution.
Right. Like say, what do you use to make sure um, your ideas actually
Get executed or
get
something like that,
yeah
or implemented.
implemented
That's
at
great.
SalesBread, you know.
And then
Okay, right.
from that angle, it looks like, oh,
Oh,
well, that's someone who wants to help. So the trick here is going to be to pivot the conversation into, a sales conversation. And that's always a bit harder. But, you know,
so I'm going to add something because I've kind of seen like if you give people a few choices, they're more likely to reply so that they don't feel like they need to do too much mental jujitsu to respond. Um, so I might say in the past I used Trello, but uh, some like
some people,
yeah, some entrepreneurs I know use yeah have have used whatever Notion docs and Slack reminders. Period. What do you use to make sure your ideas actually get implemented at
Yeah.
SalesBread?
And please don't put your name. It's a LinkedIn stuff. Of course, we know who actually,
Right.
write the stuff. Like,
Yeah.
what the name for?
So I'll actually put a name in a connection request because it kind of feels like a note, like, hey, Jeremy, we freaking love ramen. Let's connect, Jack. Like
Let me see if I
weirdly,
do that.
it feels like it kind of warms it a little bit. Like, yeah, I do a hyphen. I'll do this.
Yeah,
You
I just
know,
don't actually.
yeah,
Because
that's
basically
cool.
we're also limited to 300 or 350 characters on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah,
So you don't want to go necessarily over.
and if you're using all 300, are you doing it wrong?
What do you mean?
Are shorter connection requests better performing?
That's always a question, but
Yeah.
I've always been on the edge of, the less you said, the less chances of making a mistake.
Yeah, cool. So we're in agreement there. So then, Jeremy, let's decide to kind of like maybe just use this as the core for today's episode.
Yeah.
We will hit you with another one, not to worry. But my question is, how did we do in terms of a rewrite? And if I may, I'll give it a quick read through. I'm
Please.
thinking of you're on the treadmill, listening to the podcast audio version. You're like, guys, throw me a bone. I shall. Hi, Jack. As a fellow agency owner, I felt like I've had a lot of good ideas slip through the cracks. In the past, I used Trello, but some entrepreneurs I know have used Notion docs and Slack reminders. What do you use to make sure your ideas actually get implemented at SalesBread?
It's pretty good. I may actually say something, preface my question with like, I'm curious, or like, I'd love to know, or whatever. So it's like, it's not like straight the question, but it's more like softening.
Yeah.
That's my style, but I think it's a style thing more than actually, a recommendation or a
Okay,
guideline I will
cool.
give. Yeah.
So here's one thing that I'll say, not to leave anybody hanging, because you might be listening or watching this and saying, well, guys, what about my value props? They're not here. And what we're dealing with is a pure pain focused message, which works really nicely. I'm all for it. And I recommend it
Yeah.
when you are addressing a bleeding neck problem. I think in this case, we kind of riffed on this idea that a lot of good ideas slip through the cracks of business owners. It may hit, it may not hit. It really kind of depends. Like, I'm not going to tell you that this is a problem that we can spot and build a list around. However, it may hit, and therefore follow up can contain a little bit more details. And Jeremy, I'm not trying to go too wild with it, but I might follow up and say, like, for background, I've spent the last 3 years trying to tackle this problem. You can see where we've ended up so far over here. Like, for context, I don't know, just a little bit, maybe some social proof. There's some next message that will drive it home. Is that how you would start to plan out the follow up?
Yeah, that's. I think that will work perfectly fine. The thing that I'm thinking is like, I'm not necessarily thinking of selling straight away. I'm thinking about like, how do I open a conversation with that person? Because you're on LinkedIn. If they accept your conversation, then they're gonna see your messages, and then, because in this case the problem could be operational, it could be execution, like the quality of your engineers or
Right.
whatever it is. Like, it could be lots of different things. It's not really due to like, hey, here's my software and it's going to help you. That's fine, but my problem is
Good
on
point.
operation, not on development, or whatever it is. So it's
Good
kind of like
point.
tricky, but at the same time you may want to build your connection with agency owners, and I think it's a great segue to actually say like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
human, I just want to connect on a human level.
Yeah.
Let's stay in touch. I may not be able to help you today, but maybe,
Yeah.
there will be stuff down the line. And I think that's a game I like
Yeah.
to play, the long
So
game.
so then we keep riffing, and like, this is why this show is so much fun for me, because
Me
well,
too.
like, I'll start with like kind of a
It's 10
medium
minutes.
interesting topic, and then we'll end here. But like, think about now strategy. So you're working with an agency, you're talking with your team, it's your company, and you need a good plan for outbound. Like, realize that outreach is not just list building and copyright. It is like proper strategic thinking. For example,
100%.
you might look at this campaign and say, guys, we could create a free version that just tracks good ideas in Slack and makes persistent reminders. And therefore, this campaign might be around like, hey, if you felt like you had a lot of good ideas slip through, I know I have, I know a lot of my entrepreneur friends have, like, we just made a Slack thing. It's free and put it, and that could be like entry point one. And then from there, you might upsell to this crazy implementation, blah, blah, blah thing. Right. And
Thanks,
so,
Jack. That's so cool. Do you mind me asking you as well, what you do for X and Y? And that's, your segue to the other things. It's a starting point. And I think
isn't
way
it?
too often people are just way too transactional. And it works in volume,
Yeah.
potentially, but if your market is small, you stand no chance whatsoever.
Bingo. All right, cool, Jeremy. I'm happy with
Yep.
where we arrived. And yeah, great session. Good to be back in the studio with you, my friend.
Likewise.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jack.
Go to QuickMail, go to SalesBread. You guys rock. Bye. See ya.